Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's episode of Pilot Light, a podcast where we talk about the first episode of a TV series. If we're fucking lucky, it's called the pilot episode. And then we talk about it. My name's David, and this week we are doing a fantastic family sitcom starring the Bundy family. Wait, no, sorry, it's the other one with Ed O'Neill.
The other one, which we'll get into the headcanon, but this is exactly the same guy, guaranteed. My name's Sam, and like Phil, I know all the dances from High School Musical too.
And I'm Joe, and if Dave never wakes up on a beach half naked, I've done my job.
Haven't yet done that. Have not yet. I've woken up lots of places half naked, but not a beach. Because we live in England, and it's about -3 here all year round and raining.
Hypothermia.
I've got to say, Joe, if you're doing your job, I'm failing at mine. I have to say, for that point.
It's not something I want to see. I want to hear the story of how it happens, but I don't want to see Dave half naked on a beach.
You want to hear the anecdote, oh, that's really funny, over WhatsApp early in the morning, like many times before, but not actually be present for it. That's just gauche.
I don't want to see Dave half naked on a beach. No,
that's a universal truth. I think we can all get behind as a.
I think you guys are missing out, and I think we should stop body shaming me. To be honest,
to be fair,
you'd have to be into it, but you could appreciate it.
I've seen more of you than anybody wants to see. To be fair,
smelled more of me too. Sure.
Yes.
So this week we actually watched Modern Family, in case you hadn't already guessed, which is a bona fide network sitcom. Oh my god!
This wasn't on Netflix ever.
Yes,
except it is now.
It is now. Yes.
Specifically, we watched the first episode, which is again novelly called Pilot, which aired on the 23rd of September 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So. This is quite a long-running sitcom, we should say, as well. It's just finished last year. It ran for, 11 seasons?
Something like that, yeah.
Like that, yeah.
I love Modern Family. I think this is the creme de la creme of network television. Like, I don't think there's anything that's been this good. Probably, I'm going to say it, since Friends, maybe? Do you think Friends is like where this is at in terms of just the absolute consistency? Great characters, great premise, pretty solid all the way through for 10 plus seasons. I don't think anything else is close to this.
10 plus seasons. I would say, I think the US Office, or maybe Parks and Rec are kind of up there in terms of, we should say actually, this is a family sitcom, but it takes the form of a mockumentary. So it's much more in the vein of
The
Office or Parks and Rec. You know, it's much more in the vein of those kinds of shows than Friends, which is like much more of your really standard film before a studio audience.
I think certainly in terms of Parks and Rec, I think this is better over a far longer period. Parks and Rec takes probably 2 series to really warm up and get into the good stuff.
And The Office, all that Will Ferrell shit towards the later stage.
Yeah, I think this is definitely more consistent. The reason I mentioned The Office in Parks and Rec is before we get into the episode, I mean, I'm going to assume if you're listening to this podcast, you're aware of what Modern Family is. It's not like we're doing some niche 90s UK drama about going back in time in a pub.
See you next week.
Next week.
Check out our episode on that TV series I cannot even remember the name of.
Good Night, Sweetheart.
Good Night, Sweetheart.
You bought the DVD,
Modern Family.
Dave. You should remember it.
Was an ABC show, I believe. And again, one of you can fact check while I just talk nonsense. It was an ABC show. And basically, ABC picked it up because NBC, who were already airing The Office and Parks and Rec while this was being shopped around, said, we've got enough. We've got enough mockumentary style sitcoms.
Probably true.
Right now. And I bet they're kicking themselves because this is a phenomenal moneymaker of a TV show.
So if you can understand the process, though, can't you? You can kind of understand it a little bit, you know.
And I bet this looked expensive as well. Like we talk, obviously we haven't talked about the traditional pilot thing in a while because we've been doing a load of stupid Netflix shows. But they'll have filmed the pilot or a version of, and they'll have shopped it around and said, right, this is what we're doing, and someone will have gone, how many cast members? Because obviously
and they're not cheap cast either. Quite a few of them are well known. So
right now we've got 6. In this first episode, we've got 6 adult main cast members, plus 4 or maybe 5 child actors who are obviously
Yeah, a
cheaper,
lot of
sure.
kids.
But like 6 plus Ed O'Neill, who like we make fun of, but is still like quite a big name and demands, quite a high salary. I think this episode and early on he was getting about 200 grand an episode, and like only someone like Ed O'Neill who comes from sitcom background like Married with Children can come in and demand that sort of money straight off the bat.
Yeah, it's a real like legacy of TV past, isn't it? This show, you've got Ed O'Neill there, but also the format. It's kind of like blending your traditional family comedy stuff with the mockumentary thing, which is really kind of in vogue from The Office in the 2006 US Office game dropped in America, and then Parks and Rec, and like all of this other stuff that we've already talked about. But I think this is like the perfect crystallization of like translating that mockumentary style into a more standard kind of way of making television, because it's never referenced. Like The Office, they never go into it until The Office did, and then it was terrible. Straight away, they're having these interviews to camera. It's very standard, but there's no reference of where this film crew has come from. Like, it's a really weird thing. I'm always confused and amazed and impressed that this actually works as a format, because you should be questioning it. You should be saying, who are they talking to? Like, what?
It's well-made TV. It's a suspension of disbelief.
Absolutely.
And all it is you never really wonder who they're talking to, because it's just like the mockumentary style as used in this is just an excuse to have that, like, that talking to Big Brother thing. Like, somebody goes off screen and has a private conversation about somebody, and it's just that like nice little look into the private lives. Sam, give us a plot summary before we ramble on for too much longer.
So, in Modern Family, 3 different but related families face trials and tribulations in their own uniquely comedic ways. So we get the Dunphy family, we get Jay, Pritchett and the Delgatos, and then we get the other Pritchetts and the Tuckers. It's very confusing. You know who they are. You've seen this show. Like, I think this is, straight off the bat, obviously, we get like a lot of diversity in this show, which I think is a really like a nice thing, and that's where that kind of sense of modern family comes from. You've got a divorced guy in Jay, and then his younger wife from Colombia. You've got the gay couple with their adopted daughter, and then you've got the more kind of conventional nuclear family in the Dunphys. And I think that like variety that you have throughout the cast, and the way that you get in like to a little window into this world of incredibly rich people who live in Los Angeles, like.
Oh, there's some affluenza in this series. My lord. And they deign later on, they have the audacity to have like, we're having money troubles. You fucking aren't.
I know. How about your millionaire dad saved you? Because he's a capitalist business owner who's like, with his closet business.
They do it. There's an episode of that in Friends, though, isn't there, as well, where like, I think is it Ross and Rachel? No, it's not Ross and Rachel. It's Ross, Monica, and Chandler are there, like, splashing the cash, and the other 3 are there, like, oh, we're so poor. Yeah, you're so poor in the middle of fucking New York.
At least, Joe, in that, like, these people don't own what is essentially a mansion and like expensive that have assets. So I can believe that, like, someone who even if they're wealthy, is at least, living paycheck to paycheck. Whereas Modern Family, all of these people have a huge amount of money invested in housing and things.
It's the only thing that drags me out of this. Like, there's later on in the show, they go to Hawaii, and probably paid for by the state of Hawaii. The whole thing is it's just laced with like product placement throughout the series, including that weird episode that was done on FaceTime. Ugh. But like, they're going to Hawaii, and Jay literally just pays for the entire family to go, and you're thinking, like, it's not quite as expensive to go to Hawaii as it is from the UK. It's still fucking expensive. So
it's not cheap, is it?
This is tens of thousands of dollars, to ship your family off.
In the light of doing this, as is tradition, let's talk a little bit about this episode. If one of you wants to succinctly sum up the plot of this episode, we can maybe talk about like this as, because straight off the bat, I think this is a, as good a pilot as we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of like being pretty much on form, not a lot changes between now and the main series. Really, I think it's a decent outing for like introduction wise. But if one of you's got it succinct in your head, what happens in this episode of television?
It kind of introduces you to all the families, doesn't it? So the first family introduces you to Claire and Phil and their 3 kids, and the mayhem of a traditional kind of day in their household, trying to get the kids.
Only 3 kids. I laugh at your 3 children and 2 parents and feeling overwhelmed.
Trying to kind of like get a normal day, and then the eldest, who's, I don't know how old she's meant to be in this episode, but teenager,
15.
one presumes, 15. She's bringing round a boy for the first time, and the boy's got like a BB gun and shoots his sister, and his sister wants him to be shot in return, and
I think
I've real biblical stuff like an eye for an eye. Well, you shot your sister, so guess who's getting shot?
It was apparently a promise
hand.
they made when he got given the gun, was that if he shot anybody, he had to be shot in return.
Yeah.
I
think the Dumfries is probably the family that I would relate to the most. Having 2.4 children and that type of thing. Like it's very much
at 1.98 at the minute, Sam.
Yeah, we're very close to having 2. Come on,
you're one broken water away
from. So it's like, I think that number one, I relate to that obviously family unit, and it's kind of relatable. There's also the kind of dynamic between Claire and Phil. I think is very relatable for straight white people. In terms of
so wealthy straight white people like yourself,
yeah, exactly. So that all very much relates. The bit that is super just like is when they're organizing to shoot Luke in retribution for shooting his sister with the BB gun, and they're like, no, we can't do that because we've got to go football at 5, and then we're going out for a meal afterwards. So I think we can maybe squeeze.
I thought you were going to be really in favour of corporal punishment there. I was like, this is but no, it's actually the scheduling. It's actually the scheduling.
It's the scheduling because it's like, oh yeah, well, shoot, and it's like 4:15, shoot Luke, and that is.
And Luke's oh man,
we have.
Sorry, buddy, it's on the calendar now.
We have a calendar. We have to, you have to organize things in life when you're running around after, football classes and various things. So I think there's a real, like, I live in that. And Phil as well as a character, I have very, very close connection to in terms of his attempt to be cool dad.
Yeah, he's trying to be cool dad, and at the same time, he doesn't really know how to punish his kids, does he? He doesn't really know how to be the bad guy.
I imagine that's also quite similar in your house, Sam. I just can't imagine you being the bad guy. I can't imagine you wearing the pants in that situation. Like
I can be authoritarian, but mostly, as we've discussed, corporal punishment. Like just that's taking hands, fingers, toes. Like that's the way to do it. That's how you get to the...
don't think you should be saying this on the podcast. You have a job.
I mean, I saw Callum a couple of weeks back, and he had every. Callum had all of his fingers and toes fingers. I didn't see his toes, but I can confirm fingers were there. And he seemed to be walking normally, so he still seemed to have balance. So I assume toes.
Just in
okay.
Case anyone is curious, as far as we know, Sam's son is alive and well. But
2 weeks ago he was anyway.
2 weeks, Joe. Call social services now. But yeah, I kind of get what you mean, Sam. Like, and I think there's that you did, as you said, this show is somewhat diverse because we've got the Delgado families. We've got Gloria and Manny, who were Colombian, but that's kind of as diverse as we get. And I will just say this is still a very white show. Oh, and Lily, of course, who's Vietnamese, the baby that that Cameron and Mitchell have.
I guess in like this episode, that's not really. I mean, I know they say she's from Vietnam, but it's not really obvious kind of in this because you don't really even see the baby that much.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it is a very white show, so it's like easy for us as white folk to be like, "Oh, I'm white, great, this is lovely." Don't clip that.
As all white people have been doing for a long time. Historically, we're quite good at that.
But it is different. It's 2009. Like we talked about Married with Children, which we should do if we can ever stream it, because my fucking lord, that could not be further away from this TV show. But like, you know, we are this is quite. I hesitate to throw out the word progressive, but like, this is a show which presents, you know, it presents especially a gay couple in a very positive light, and I think has a lot to say about like how all of you homophobes out there need to get your shit together, because
there's
like
quite a funny scene when you first meet them, isn't there? They're on the plane coming
on
back.
the plane, yeah.
They're on the plane coming back, and you know what's he called, the redhead one,
Mitchell.
like he's really kind of like wired for that sort of a thing, and he thinks somebody makes a comment because somebody says, "Oh, look at the baby with the cream puffs." And he thinks, "Oh my god!" And then he gets up and like this self-righteous kind of talk about how disgusted it is, and then it turns out that like the baby actually has a cream puff in its hand. It's quite funny.
I wonder about the kind of like gay representation in this. It feels a little bit, now, you know, all straight guys here, so what do we know? But it feels a little bit like this is like the nice, acceptable version of you know, of gay people, and this joke at the start, I think, is very much obviously Mitchell misinterprets what's going on, and you would say that he probably has a lot of just cause to be defensive about this type of thing because of the bigotry and all that he grows up.
And he does say as well that his dad won't come into a room with him without like announcing himself first in case he catches them kissing, sort of thing, which is a bit kind of.
Let's talk about Jay in a minute, because there's a lot to be said there, kind of relate to this. But I do wonder, like, I wonder how it's interpreted by gay folks, because it's kind of like fun and it's light and it's not mean spirited. It doesn't feel mean spirited, but at the same time, it's still like gay jokes. Do you know what I mean? It's still the essence of the humor sometimes is because they're gay. And you know, like Cameron being a football coach is at one point a nice subversion of your stereotypical gay, you know, idea about what a man is. But at the same time, it's the joke is that he's gay and a football coach. Like, it's really leaning on
football or soccer. We're talking football or soccer here.
No, football, American football.
I think it's also like it's quite a tricky line to walk, and I don't want to get too bogged down on this, because this again, like, we really don't have anything to add to this conversation as three straight dudes, like, you know. But certainly, the way I look at it, I think that this show addresses, like, usually through the character Jay, like, we usually learn a lesson. You know, we usually learn that like being a bigot is wrong. In, you know, pretty much like Jay is a bigot in all respects. So. Yeah.
This episode's effectively like age doesn't matter sort of thing, you know, because they mock him for being older than his wife,
and he is like 30 years older than.
Should we talk about
Gloria.
Jay? Yeah,
let's talk about Ed O'Neill, who, like, he looks 50 years older than he looked in Married with Children, and he looked 50 in that.
The 90s was rough, I think, is what the lesson of that is. I think Ed O'Neill is probably like the heart and soul of where this show comes from, obviously with the previous kind of sitcom stuff that he's been in. But as you said, Joe, it's like learning a lesson, and I think Jay is the one who gets to learn lessons all the time. In this, in the earlier seasons, he's very much like, oh, you know, gay people having kids. Oh, I'm not quite sure about that. But then he comes round, and the kind of like the arc is very much his conversion to, you know, from being a boomer, let's have a nice light beer and watch some football, but, you know, to actually being a bit more progressive and a bit more open to difference and diversity, and that his son and his wife as well, you know, and Manny kind of force him to do that, and I like that. I like that arc. I think it's quite approachable.
It's because he's the nucleus of the family. Like, I'd watched odd episodes of this in the past before I watched it all sequentially, and I was a bit like, how are all these people related? Like, because it is sometimes unclear, because Jay is the nucleus. Like, so Jay's the dad, and then Mitch and Claire are his kids, and that sometimes doesn't come across like that. So sometimes, like, who's related to who?
Wikipedia has a family tree on the Wikipedia page for this reason.
totally legitimate. Like, and so, mostly what we're seeing when all of the cast are together, which, most episodes we get like a family meal or a family event or something, or they're all just round at someone's house shouting, which, sitcom, I suppose. But he is the nucleus of the family and like the connecting factor. So of course, but at the same time, I think that largely we get a lot more screen time for the Dunphy family or for the Cam and Mitch family, like the Pritchett's, than we get for Jay. I think Ed O'Neill gets like, I wouldn't say any more screen time than I'm not looking at a cast list, but the actor who plays Phil, especially, like he seems to be quite front and center in the
he gets an
the
awful
show.
lot.
Yeah. It's kind of, I think it's because it's probably they're the most recognizable family unit, aren't they? And then, but I think it's quite good at balancing that as the series progresses. I kind of like how it does. It has some of the different takes, and we get to see sometimes the same issue tackled at from different places. And in this episode, like they all have that bit at the end where they need to learn a lesson, and everyone's making reference to the incident that's happened earlier. It's very, very sitcom, very American sitcom.
My favorite reference to something off screen in the Modern Family is always when they reference the mum, who's played by, it's not Diane Chambers. What's the actor's name, Joe?
I'm not sure.
Shirley Long.
No.
Shirley Long, who plays the mum in this, and she's in a half a dozen episodes maybe, but they're constantly like talking about her as this like, oh, this fucking nightmare of a woman, and then they cast Shirley Long to play her, and it's like that's just perfect.
She is perfect, and she's playing Diane basically like a Diane,
exactly,
a washed up failure of a woman. Like it's perfect. It's great casting, and then putting her against like Ed O'Neill. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just wonderful synergy. But like again, it's this kind of like lived-in world where it's obviously been thought about, these connections, and it's not immediately like, and this is Phil. We don't have a narrator. We don't have Ron Howard telling us like, how they're all related and things like that. We kind of just have to infer it all. So in this episode, we get like a nice introduction to the Dunphy family. We have the running around. We establish loads of like jokes we'll come back to. Luke getting his head stuck in a banister, the broken step on the stairs at the Dunphy house, which remains broken for I think like the entire season run.
Fix that.
Yeah, we get Haley being like promiscuous is maybe the wrong word, but like her and Claire quite frequently.
I think Claire fears that she's promiscuous, sort of thing. That's the thing, like because she herself knew what she was like at that age.
Exactly, and that's always something that Modern Family does really well. Is it always like there's always a reason that one of these adults is acting like has a strong opinion about something, and it usually stems from like personal experience. Like Claire having gotten pregnant at like 21 or 22, as we're told, like she's like, well, I don't want her to do that because that was fucking horrible.
Yeah. Look at the shit situation I'm in now.
Yeah, look at this. I don't want this for her.
Yeah.
With my husband, with my steady job and like massive house. God damn it, it's just terrible. This is awful.
Again, like if you could switch off to all the affluenza, I imagine if you were like as wealthy as the Dunphys, like this would be your favorite TV show because it's just how we are. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I could have a pool if I wanted a pool, but I choose not to.
I too have 4 cars. This is brilliant. Yeah. The creators of this I think are interesting. It's Stephen Levitan and Christopher Lloyd, and like they've got quite a history of various different TV shows, but maybe not anything that obviously reaches the levels of this. There's kind of a couple ones that you might have heard of. Lloyd was involved in Frasier. I think he was I think he was either a producer or a writer. I can't actually see. Yeah, he was executive.
You can kind of see bits of Frasier in this, to be fair.
Again, like a lot of the like middle to upper class jokes. that we get.
And some of
intelligent.
the stupid situations they manage to get themselves into, particularly Phil. He tends to like sometimes gets himself in stupid situations. And
there's a lot of quite vaudevillian sort of like pratfalls and humor in this. You are right, Joe. From Phil, especially a lot of physical comedy. The electrocution plotline, he gets electrocuted like once a season. And it gets increasingly bad, and like the doctor's like, stop getting electrocuted, like you can't keep getting electrocuted. But it's a really funny, like comedic, a very physical performance from him.
But I think because it comes from like real life, it comes from their experiences of like, you know, being having been family men and having that kind of like the difficulties that come with having to balance all this stuff. And I think that the real like strength of this show is and I think why it works so well so consistently is because it's about the minutiae, it's about the small details in people's lives.
It's about finding the humor in everyday life. You know, these people being rich aside, like it's not massively outlandish. There's no magic in Modern Family. There's no storyline in this that, you know, couldn't just be explained by
it's all quite relatable, generally. Like, you know, they're doing things that everyday life, you know, they're not doing stupid fanciful things, they're doing everyday life, you know. They're small.
Some of the later stuff is a bit
I've not seen the latest stuff. It's a while back I watched it. I think it's maybe seen 5 or 6 seasons maybe.
It's mostly just like some of the, you know, like when we get into Claire and Jay's business, it's a bit like this is all a bit convenient and irrelevant. And again, like, well, even if the business folds and we all lose our jobs,
the kids look extremely young in this, like, and they are very,
and they are young. I think what are they, like 6, 9?
I think Ariel Winters, I think, was 11.
11.
Interesting fact, I was reading about her actually. Like her mother ended up getting banned from set because she kept on like criticizing her daughter about like her weight and things like that in the performance. And actually, Winters has now like succeeded in court in, like, you know, being you know, no longer attached to her parents.
You're the worst. Like, I think anyone who is trying to get their kid into acting should really be scrutinized to the absolute like maximum the law allows. Like, please, let's protect child actors. They've suffered enough.
Mm-hmm. It is, it's child actors though. I think the kid who plays Manny, who I don't have his name. Where is it?
It's possibly one of the
Rico Rodriguez is his name, and go on.
It's one of the strongest cast of children. I think I'm trying to think of like a, you know, maybe with the exception of Macaulay Culkin, like name another child actor like who is doing the heavy lifting that these kids are doing. Obviously, Rico Rodriguez was it you said, Sam?
Yeah.
He's really excellent and continues to be so. I think he is one of the more thoughtfully written and like sensitively performed characters in this. I think Ariel Winter, like you said, Joe, I think she's really good. Like, you know, name another 11-year-old who can like carry off the line reads that she does.
And Luke as well. Luke's great, like, because he plays this complete idiot, and actually he's incredibly intelligent. I think isn't he something like Mentor or something like? He's a member of Mentor or something. Yeah, he's ridiculously smart.
Yeah. But to go back to Manny for a second, I think what works so well about that is because like it works at different layers, and I think the writing of each character is pretty good at kind of providing you with like a sedimentary layer of different depth. So he's great because he's a kid and he's an idiot, you know, and he's just a stupid child. But then he's also like this lovesick old man.
He is an old romantic, like
who wears like double-breasted
11 years old.
Well, this episode he writes a poem, doesn't he?
Espresso in the morning, Sam, and like
I know
he writes poems.
He wrote poems for a 16-year-old girl in this episode.
Yeah, and that continues throughout. Like he is just absolutely hopeless, and it's kind of like a really endearing.
And then the dynamic. Sorry.
Go on, no, go on.
The dynamic then between like Jay being really frustrated by this because he's used to a guy's guy. You know, he doesn't understand this at all.
He's a man's man. He played quarterback in college, and he's like, I drink whiskey and I smoke cigars, and I'm like, you know, I play golf, and you know, we're men and we don't talk, and we, you know,
and and you don't see it in this episode, but I think the again that the way that those relationships develop as the series progresses, so that like Manny and Jay actually become kind of two, like old souls together type of thing, and they kind of lean on that relationship quite well. Yeah. The same thing with Jay and Phil, where like there's a real father-in-law, son-in-law thing going on.
What's the Jay plotline in this episode? Because I'll be honest, I watched 3 or 4 of them, and I'm really can't remember.
So he's watching Manny play football, and somebody starts talking to Gloria and commenting about how he must be her father, and he's like, "No, I'm a husband," sort of thing.
Legitimately, because he's more than old enough to be a father.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then he's like, it effectively tries to convince Manny not to tell this 16-year-old girl that he loves her by wearing his white fluffy shirt and writing the poem. And
a pirate shirt.
And then has to stop because he wants to pick her some flowers. And then he goes down to the mall, and a security guard mistakes him for one of the mall walkers, which is like a group of old
wearing
people.
This jumpsuit, isn't he?
Yeah. And then it's kind of at the end, it's Mitchell being afraid of telling him that they've adopted a child because, like they say, he's uncomfortable still.
I really like that scene at the end. I really like the because like we're all like really progressive, and we wouldn't have any problem with a gay friend adopting a child because it's silly. But like I kind of respect the show for acknowledging that there are people like that. Yeah. And I think that this show almost acts like that very cliched thing of, oh, I know a gay person, and all of a sudden, like the if you're homophobic, the idea of what a gay person is changes when it's your son or when it's your friend or whatever else. Like, and I think the show is kind of tapping on that. And when you see the look on Ed O'Neill's face, great acting, when everyone else is rushing towards a new baby and they're so happy and all this, he's kind of like he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't understand the new world that he's in, and he has this look where he's kind of at this point of reflection to say, am I gonna can I accept this? Can I make sense of this in my head? And then he does, and that's like the redeeming thing about his character. And I think the whole show is that it almost allows people to like explore some of this taboo stuff for some people, and it'd be okay, and it'd be warm, and it'd be welcoming, and it'd be like, it's all right, gay people are okay, you're okay, everyone's okay. That's the kind of like.
We should say though that this is a comedy, so like it always maybe toes the safer side of the line, where like we all know that eventually like Jay is going to realize that being gay is fine, and like that he's going to become more comfortable, and like we see that with the relationship with Cam throughout the series of like this constant sort of like he then learns to treat Cam just like a normal son-in-law, because why shouldn't he? Like,
because he likes football
and there's
too.
that they become more comfortable with each other. But like the show is not setting out to like be a drama about the acceptance of being gay. It's not about that, but like you do agree with you, Sam. I think it shows it in a very positive light, and it is there. Yeah. And 10 years before this, it would not be there. God forbid, when Married to Children was on air, like I will bet, and I haven't seen that show in a billion years, I will bet that Married with Children is stacked with homophobia. Stacked.
What are you, a pansy? Like, there's just
absolutely.
Yeah, there will be loads of that. That is so, but I like shows, and let's not get into it. I like shows that are exploring these issues. I think it's great and it's good, and even if it's on the edge sometimes, and maybe that's kind of what people needed in 2009 to kind of push us a little bit further along.
It's kind of a balm of a show. It's a very optimistic show. Usually, you very rarely finish an episode and think, "Oh, I wonder what's going to happen with that." In the best possible sitcom way, because this is a long episode. Is it a 40-minute that would air over an hour?
20
is it
minutes.
not?
It's 23-minute
Why
pilot.
do I always think that? This is not the first time I have thought that this was a 40-minute. I think it's because the cast is so large.
Yeah.
But ignore me then. This is quite a short.
Frequently do.
In total contrast to what I just said.
David about turn Newell, yeah.
Yes.
But no, this is a wonderful pilot episode. Getting back to it again, that kind of ends in that nice message where we establish the modern family.
And...
We've got the traditional Claire and Phil and the 2.5 children, etc. We've got Jay and his much younger wife, which he's always played for laughs, and that's very funny. With their their son. We get some really funny plot lines later on, by the way, because Manny and Luke are the same age and they go to the same school, and they have a big fight in season 1 because Manny insists that Luke calls him his uncle. And like they have this big fight about it. Brilliantly funny, really funny. And obviously in this episode establishes that Mitch and Cam adopt a child, Lily, who we get more of, and like, because this show ran over 10 years, like by the end of this show, this baby we meet in this episode is having like teen angst, and that's like where most of the plots there are derived from. And it's a bit like, time has passed, I've aged.
The
These children are growing up on television before my eyes.
I remember when they were just little tots, they grow up so fast. These kids that I feel like are my family too.
Well, this is it. And this is a very human reaction when watching like a sitcom, is to like become invested in these characters. And that's like humans are not stupid maybe, but like I say, mad, like psychological thing that happens with all sorts. Yeah. Like all these people who are in love with inanimate objects. Like it's really easy for human people to form connections, and especially with like a nice, I will say fairly sanitized, like upper middle class white people sitcom like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Although this show, I think, also does. Like, there's a joke in this about Luke's head's stuck in the banister. Where's the baby oil? And
Claire goes, "Oh, it's in our dress. I don't know. Next to You'll have to find it."
Because they were using it to fuck. Like there's
a great. I really enjoy the Phil and Claire, like, who actually have this incredibly like what's the word, like loving and honest relationship, which is just soothing to watch. That's the biggest thing about Modern Family. It's soothing. Like it really like chips away all the COVID and all of the political uprisings and all of the racial stuff that's going on in the world, and like just smooths that all down and just makes you feel nice. We have a great plot later on where it's someone's birthday or Father's Day or something, and the kids make breakfast for the parents. They walk into the bedroom and they're having sex, and like the kids are like, right, well, we're moving out then. Where are we going to go and live? Because obviously we can never talk to them again, and things like that. And like the episode ends with like the kids buying them a lock for the bedroom,
which works until they the Pavlovian association between the kunk of the lock going in,
and they leave the house. They're like, no,
oh god, no, we can hear it now. We know what's happening. What do we don't like about this show then? Because we've gushed on this. I'm going to start with the episode that I referenced earlier, which is just appalling product placement, where it basically all happens on FaceTime. Now, it's kind of like innovative, and especially in the Zoom world, the Michael Sheen, David Tennant stage thing, which is, again, all happens on Zoom. Like, it's kind of cool in that sense. But fuck me, this show is just so heavily invested in using its airtime to sell products. And
it's a show, Sam, about rich white people that's aim to sell things to other rich white people.
But who don't think they're rich white people?
No, but the show knows. The show knows, Joe.
No, the show knows, but they don't.
If you're watching the Dumfries, you've fucking got disposable money. You want a yacht? Oh, we'll show you loads of shots of a specific lake yacht. You want a Hawaii vacation? Yeah. We'll show you a Hawaii vacation.
The show knows that they're rich, but they don't think that they are. The actual family themselves.
Yeah. They don't.
I think Jay knows. Jay knows.
Jay knows he's rich, but
he pours whiskey in like half pints. That, and you think that's money. That's
how men drink it.
All people also do that, Sam, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, in different ways. Yeah, not in
different ways.
They don't pour it; they just take it straight from the bottle. What's the point?
Glug. Oh, what's wrong with you? Tuesdays, am I right?
Tuesdays, yeah.
The crushing poverty of life.
but that episode, I think, is one of the weakest ones, and there's not that many of them, to be fair. But it's weak because I think it kind of like gets out of it it gets out of the groove that I think they are really, really good at keeping in, which is like what happens when the family comes together and there's conflict and there's a funny situation or there's a farce or whatever it is.
They stick to it being a sitcom. We have a situation, comedy arises. It's a very simple equation that's so frequently done wrong. And like you said, Sam, that episode's a bit gimmicky, I think. And like I think you are right. It's trying to be experimental, and it's like, again, this film kind of bridges from, at the start of it, it's, we've got mobile phones, we've got smartphones, we have social media, but it's all in its infancy. And then by that episode, which takes place, I think, sort of halfway through the run, like, oh wow, we've got FaceTime. Suddenly people can video call, and like that was a big revelation in for people. And I remember it, and like, so it's kind of capturing that zeitgeist. Watching it in 2021, you're like, fucking hell, like just
too much. It's too much.
Someone tries to, and also I'm a caveman. If someone tries, number one, if you ring me and I don't recognize the number, I'm not answering that. You can leave me a message. Number two, if you video call me and you aren't literally my closest friends or relations, like even then, my brother video called me to tell me about his girlfriend being pregnant. Decline. I'm not fucking speaking to you on a video call. I'm not composing my face. I'm not subjecting myself to what I don't know what you're going to tell me. So, like, if we're speaking on the phone, I can absolutely like, oh yeah, well done. If we're speaking, but you can see me.
I feel
that's a bit too personal.
I feel privileged that we managed to get you on YouTube
twice a week.
I
resisted the video for that.
I know you did.
Like,
yeah, so there we go. So you can see Dave's live reactions.
I had to special order this camera from 1992, so you can barely see anything.
What was it like there in the Soviet Union, Dave? How are you getting on?
Oh, it's Love Your Leader hour.
Good. We better wrap up. So is there anything else that we want to, anything you guys don't like about this show, or we're going to carry on?
It's kind of difficult for me because it's so long since I've watched it. I can't remember specific episodes. So I'm basically working off this pilot. So I mean, for a pilot, I don't think you're going to get much better than this. It interviews all the characters well. It's funny. The cast are great. Yeah, it ticks all the boxes really. So
yeah. I will say what thing I really like about this show thematically throughout is how everyone's relationship's really stable. Like, you rarely get an episode that's like, oh, Jay and Gloria are on the rocks. Because really, like, it's this great recognition of that these three couples who are very much like invested in each other and happy. And that's something that, like, even Friends, is more kind of like cashing in on that conflict that exists between people and that, like,
good point.
Falling in and out of love, and like, do we want to be together? Don't we want to be together? And like Cam and Mitchell never really, like, they argue and they bicker, but there's never really like are we breaking up?
There's a couple of like episodes where like Phil fucks up and like pisses Claire off, but it's never like, oh my god, she's going to leave him sort of.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like
it's never even on the table. It's never even on the table, and I kind of like that. And it's
he kind
why
of
it's
grovels
so easy
and gets
to watch,
back into
and
the good
feels
books,
so,
doesn't he? He just
exactly. It feels so pleasant and safe because it's like they're all just people, and people make mistakes. Like,
so you're saying you don't like that, or you do like?
No, I'm saying I like that.
Oh yeah,
I'm saying it's kind of refreshing not to have this, like. Do you know what I mean? We could have a season 2, like, oh, Claire and Claire, Phil's moved out, and then that's loads of like every sitcom has the dad moves into the garage episode, doesn't it? And like, we don't have that. Even The Simpsons has a like
The Sopranos. He literally moves into the garage.
Literally in The Simpsons, Homer moves into the treehouse more than once, and it's like this. We never go there, and it's kind of nice and like again makes it feel very stable. I love the cast. I really love the cast for this.
Julie Bowen, obviously, the one that I always remember her for is Boston Legal.
Yeah, Julie Bowen's very, very good. Was it Ty
Burrell?
Ty Burrell is amazing. I think he won several Emmys for like outstanding comedy on TV. The child cast. Sarah
Hyland or whatever she's called. She's been in quite a bit.
She's really good as well. Yeah, like, and I think she's actually oddly like asked to do the least, I think, out of, especially in the later on it changes a little bit.
She's the angsty teenager, isn't she?
Exactly, she's the angsty teenager.
They struggle with her a bit, I think, don't they? Like in terms of where she fits, because
it's written by like middle-aged white blokes. Yeah. Like, what do they know about being a
teenage
girl?
She goes to college, she drops out, then she has a baby, then like she's living in the basement, and it's kind of like a difficult
Bit weird.
You know, maybe representing
because it's not a teen show. Like it's not, and they have to tread that line later on. Like where every single sitcom that's ever been on TV eventually outgrows its premise. In this, it's physically they physically outgrow their premise when none of the children are children anymore.
when they're adults.
So then you do get like a oh, they're all having flings and they're all learning to be adults, and you do kind of switch because half the cast is 18 in one season of this. Like you're like, oh shit, when did this happen? And Haley is like, because she's that much older than the other child stars, like she has to go through that transition much earlier and by herself, and she goes to college, and it's like, why? Oh, just because she needs to put her somewhere, and then she's living in the basement. It's like, what's she doing? Well, we don't really know because we're not really interested in telling you a story about kids. This is about people in their 40s and 50s and 70s.
She's kept quite infantilized, isn't she? Throughout, like, she's an idiot. They kind of
by being stupid. Yeah,
joke her up a little bit. Yeah, so it's interesting. But I think it overall works. I come back to the start, what I started with in terms of consistency. I don't think there is anything like this that since Friends has been so consistent. And other than a couple of blips, I can't really. I mean, literally, I'm maybe one or two episodes. I cannot think of anything.
Yeah, really there's maybe one or two episodes, one or two plot lines I don't love. I'm not in love with Cam's sister as a character. I think she's really funny when she first comes in, and then she's not, and she's not, and she's not, and then she is again because she's been so not funny for so long, and then she's not, and not, and not, and it kind of goes like that. Yeah. I think almost every other character is used so spare, Shelley Long, is used sparingly enough that they remain like a caricature and funny. When you have a funny caricature of a character who becomes a season regular, suddenly you have to normalize them and humanize them and write more than one facet of them, and then it kind of all falls apart.
The only other show I can think of that runs for this length that's probably similar in terms of very few bad episodes, Frasier.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
I can't really think of many bad episodes of Frasier. And again, that's 11 seasons.
That's obviously concurrent with Friends, so that might be the one that's I think it's still, there's nothing in between that, but those two probably are. Frasier's excellent all the way.
Yeah, and Modern Family is just excels because largely the size of the cast, it's not easy to keep all these plates spinning. No. We should say a bit of trivia on the cast in terms of the production. So obviously Hollywood is horrible. Don't be an actor. I mean, do, because you learn lots of money, but mostly statistically you will wait.
And also, if people all stop being actors, then our podcast won't continue.
Exactly, Joe. Unless we'll have to start becoming actors. Anyway, maybe. We talked last week about Power Rangers and them getting paid $40 an episode in a burger or whatever. This isn't quite that bad, but there was a massive pay disparity in the first couple of seasons of this, which I think they ended up going to court. Like a collective bargaining thing. So we said Ed O'Neill, he's your big star. He's seen it all. He's done it all. He was on a sitcom with Kate Segal for 10 years. So $200,000 an episode. That's a lot of money. I think the rest of the cast were getting more like 60 or 70, the adults, that is. And the kids, which is loads, by the way. These people are all getting lots of money, but it's all well, why aren't they getting the money that Ed O'Neill's getting?
Let's go back to Friends. $1 million per episode is what they were earning.
Thanks, Friends. You fucked it all.
This is we've never reached that level in terms of just the stratosphere that they were in. However,
I will say money wise, sorry, just to argue with you, I think Big Bang Theory equals or surpasses them in terms of money per episode for the main cast. Well, so I just don't not to disagree with you. Yeah. I think maybe adjusted for inflation, it's still, but Friends is this monolithic.
Yeah. But Friends, whichever measuring stick you want to put it. But the thing, how did they get there? This is the thing that I think is sometimes forgotten, is that Friends got there by collective bargaining. They basically said, we are all going to pull together. You pay us all the rate that we want. Otherwise, we ain't doing it. And I think that what basically this legal action you're talking about is effectively what they had to do. Ed O'Neill ended up taking a pay cut because I think they were maybe paying about $150,000 to $170,000 an episode. So yeah, loads of money. I don't feel too sorry for them.
Yeah.
But it does show that they're kind of, the approach to take is to do it collectively. Otherwise, you're going to have those disparities because.
Well, we know from Office Ladies, which is another really good podcast that you should maybe listen to instead of this because it's better than us. Which is the.
It's not. It's actually not. That's a
It's actually
crap
not,
podcast.
to be fair.
It's annoying.
It's an interesting novel podcast. But that's Angela and Pam from The Office talking about the episodes. They talk in.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you about HelloFresh because I want to talk about HelloFresh.
No,
which is
not
what
until
they
they
talk
pay
about all
us.
the time.
We've talked about this. Not until the money is in my fucking account. In that, the reason I mention it is because in that they have the personal experience of having worked on a sitcom, and that what they say is that like when you first start on a TV show, like you're just happy to have a job. You know, it doesn't really matter what they pay you. Like, you're just happy to have a job and to have your face out there. And obviously, for the first season of Modern Family, I think that was the case. Ed O'Neill,
Makes
obviously,
sense.
you need to pay him because he's got all that Married with Children syndication money. He does not need to get out of bed.
Yeah, he's not going to turn up for like 10 grand an episode. Is
Exactly,
he?
man. He's got to like cover his liver spots up and things, and like put his girdle on. It's a lot for to get Ed O'Neill out of bed. Like, you know, he was playing a fat middle-aged man in 1991. Like, in 2009, he does not need to get out of bed. So you need to pay him. The kids, obviously, just starting out, you can pay them like pretty much like the SAG minimum.
Well,
the rest of the cast.
Yeah, go on.
So the rest, I will get to that, Sam. The rest of the cast, like, you know, a lot of these guys, maybe with the exception of Claire, the woman who plays Claire, you know, who I'd seen in something before, you hadn't really seen them as regulars. So they're kind of like in the infancy of their career in that respect. So they were willing to work for relatively nothing for the chance to make it big. Of course, when the show makes it big, the production, they want to still not pay you because that's how economics works.
Well, and the kids are the ones who went from being paid about 10 grand an episode, 10...
What's a 9-year-old need 10 grand for, though? Go on.
15 to 25 to 70,000. So you kind of see that jump up. But yep, that's just the way it goes.
Just to go back to your Big Bang Theory, apparently the first 3 seasons they were on $60,000 each, and then by the last it was all $1 million. And again, they had to have like a joint negotiation because again, Jim Parsons was getting paid way more than anybody else.
And the really important thing for collective bargaining, by the way, guys, and this is for the audience and for Hollywood and everything, is like, don't be a fucking scab. Like, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Like, fucking join unions. Like, help your fellow workers attain.
Don't be a Charlie Sheen. Don't be a Charlie Sheen.
Achieve equal pay, especially on a show like this. I think, you know, obviously, again, Ed O'Neill doesn't need the money, but I think he did volunteer, like, as, you know, as a member of the crew to like take that pay cut to basically like be, again, like if he'd held out, then I think their case for equal pay would have been a lot less strong. And, you know, fucking band together, guys. Work as the world unites. These are the means of production. This is Left Wing Cast now.
Nothing to lose but your chains.
Welcome. Last fact, and then we're going to wrap up.
Shut up.
And your livelihood and, you know, house. Last fact.
I haven't got any of them, so fuck you.
Julie Bowen was 8.5 months pregnant when she filmed this.
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Which is, you can't really tell.
With twins
because
as well.
They do good blocking.
And she's a slight woman as well.
They've got washing, they've got cereal boxes. Like, it's if you go back and watch
there is an art to blocking. Like,
beautiful.
Sometimes you notice it. I tell you what, this is a separate conversation, but just briefly, the one that I've watched recently where I was like, "That's a pregnant woman," was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think they do a really like, and I'm not sure if it's intentional, whether they're trying to like call attention to the fact she's always got a huge bag full of books or something, or she's carrying a box, or like. But I didn't notice it in this, and so that's props to the props department.
The worst one for like a pregnant woman is actually, and we've said there's no bad episodes, but Frasier. Like that turns into like a fat shaming.
Fat camp. Yeah, it's a bit like, oh god, we're fat shaming a pregnant woman because she's pregnant.
and all pregnant women by that brush.
Yeah. All right, so there are some bad episodes of Frasier. Well done, Joe. I'm glad that we've torn.
Dave's frozen with a very interesting look on his face. I'm gonna. I think his internet may have truly disappeared as we come to.
Well, I think we're just about done anyway, aren't we? So
I think the internet's telling us we are. Oh, he's
There we
back.
go.
The internet has spoken.
Yeah.
So I'm back in POG form, and we will see
in
you
pod form.
next week, where I think
We're not
we're
going to
going
tell
to
you what we're going to do.
we're going
because
to get a little backdoor action going.
We keep telling you what we're going to do and then changing it.
Imaginary Movie Podcast. Sam's away, so Joe and I are going to watch. We're going to watch a backdoor pilot. Which do your podcast homework, give it a Google. I promise you shouldn't come across porn. There's a Wikipedia link. That's always safe.
I'm just going to say that I'm going to leave you guys, as you just said moments ago, to the backdoor action. Going to leave that to you guys. You got it.
Jordan, homophobe.
Socially distanced backdoor
Let's leave
action.
it there. Let's get out of here.
Socially distanced, yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys. That was fun. And see you next time.